morning, everybody, and welcome to the ET Women's Forum. It's wonderful to see a full house and to have such an eminent panel here with us to discuss what I think really is the flavor of the moment and has been in India for a few years, starting up. Just about everybody wants to be their own boss. And for us in ET, it's particularly interesting because we were amongst the first to really start chronicling this fabulous change that was happening across India, really. And over the years, we've realized that it sort of gets the zeitgeist, I think, of the times that we now live in. Just about everybody wants to be their own boss. And today we have this absolutely wonderful panel here. There's Priyanka, who's the founder of PopXO, one of the fastest growing content and companies, startups here. There's Sudhir, who's the founder of Chirate Ventures, one of the earliest in the space and one of the most impactful. And incidentally, is also an investor in PopXO. That was not by design, of course. There's Saloni, who has been there, done that, so to speak. But she's been an entrepreneur. She's now on the other side, looking at how it works really from the investment side. And there's Anjana, one of the youngest people in the startup space, who's started really early and has built scale in the e-commerce space, which is very significant. Welcome, and thanks very much for taking time to be here. So the numbers really do not tell such a great story, but when you have people of this caliber here on a stage, you tend to think it's easy to do what they've done. But really the numbers in that sense belie that. So I thought instead of dwelling on what we all know, how difficult it is to start off and particularly to build scale, and that women entrepreneurs perhaps do face a bigger challenge. But I thought it'll be interesting to have people who've really done who've gone out there and done something very different, tell us really how they went about that. So I thought we could start with you, Anjana, in that sense. Did you have to break the mold when you thought of building scale for a brand, to build a brand in India, really? Is that like a double challenge for you?
When I started in 2012, the e-commerce platform, the entire scenario was completely different. At that point of time, there was already Flipkart, there was Myntra, there was Jabong, there was a whole host of e-commerce players already operating. And with the little amount of seed that we raised, we decided very early on that we wanted to be in the brand building game. So the first barrier that we had to break was break the barrier of tech investment and e-commerce. Because nobody believed in a brand related game, saying, what the hell are you building? What does a brand mean, right? So I think the first barrier was breaking that, saying, I don't want to build an app, I don't want to go .com, I want to go the traditional way. I think there's a lot of room for offline retail in India. I don't think there's anybody catering to the youth, and that's the positioning we took. So I think that was the first difficult step, because like I was just telling, I was just mentioning to him that for the first 2-3 years, we refused to get funding because no VC wanted to look at it, saying it's not a tech-based investment. So just to hold your own and then, take the right steps that you believed in, I think that was difficult. But once that happened and when the brand started scaling and then when numbers started generating, then it's a completely different ballgame. Cut to 2 years ago when it's been a lot more of inbound, we see interest saying, listen, I want to invest, are you guys up for it? Right? And now nobody asks me whether I have a .com, now nobody asks me whether I'm app or mobile only. So I think, it was, the one thing was, what benefited me was getting the right people on board and not chase the valuation. So in 2012, there were a lot of massive valuations flowing around. So it was just to believe in the investors who came on board, and we got people who added value. So I think, people who believed in me backed me through and through. And that really helped scale and also lay a foundation, because I think most entrepreneurs struggle with continuous fundraise, right? I'm done with Series A, I'm done with Series B, but what next? Like every revenue, every milestone is linked with fundraise. And I think having people who trust you and back you, and in my case, Axel Partners, I think they did a fantastic job in backing me through and through. And it's rare for investors to back one company 5 rounds, and I think they've done it. And I think, it's a combination of both, holding your own and getting right people on board to support and guide and mentor. So that's what worked in my case.
Priyanka, in your case, again, scale is really what defines, PopXO, and I suppose the scale of your ambition and also the the stage at which your company right now is, how was this a conscious decision? Was it a difficult decision for you?
I think we are all predicated, our journeys are predicated by our conditioning. I think that's kind of the starting point in looking at a lot of difficult things that you have to look at in life. So if I look at myself, I recognize very early on in this journey that what excites me is scale. You know, when I'm telling Sudhir this morning over breakfast that, hey, 39 million monthly active users across platform is what we do every month, right? So for me, that is the point that actually gets me up and going every morning. How can I make that 39 into 100 million monthly active users across platforms? So scale is something that you have to appreciate and live with, enjoy if you are going to be in a venture funded game. Because you have lovely investors who really believe in you and who are willing to back you. But for them also, they want you to show a return on their investment, and that comes through scaling the property, scaling your concept up to a point where it is undeniably the largest in its space, right? Now coming to a point whether it's more difficult for women, not so difficult for women, I think it's to do with the DNA of the entrepreneur. I know a lot of male entrepreneurs who are very happy doing what they're doing, and something like this would probably not be comfortable for them. So I don't think it's gender. I think it's more to do with your conditioning and just basically how you're built. I enjoy this. I get a kick out of kind of seeing the numbers go up. I get a kick out of driving my team mad, trying to do the impossible with no notice. I enjoy that. Some people don't.
Sudhir, it's unusual to have two women entrepreneurs here who are really saying all the right things and all the good things really about investors, really, right?
You're sitting right here, I have to, right?
No, but having said that, lack of access to capital is one of the reasons women entrepreneurs struggle. I think, I'm sure there are many here who would agree. How do you view this really as an investor?
So, I think fundamentally, India as a country is capital starved. So it doesn't matter whether you're a man or woman, whether it is industry, whether it is building a road, whether it is building airports. So fundamentally, if I see around us, we are capital, I won't say starved, lacking capital and risk capital. Now, the information age obviously is here for the country. So effectively, if you look at now, and I'll give you some statistics of our own companies. We have about 70 companies right now, but 14% of our founders are women right now. And 2 years back, it was 9%. 2 years back, about 14 or 15% of the 30,000 employees of our companies was women. Now it's 20%. And in the supply chain, it's about 24%. It's gone up. But I think, and I must add that we realized it hindsight. It was not foresight. 30% of our own fund is today women. And they are giving a bang for the buck to all our senior people. There's no question about it. But did we go out and look for women? The answer is no. I think we looked for merit. We looked for entrepreneurs who could do the right things. And we pushed capital behind entrepreneurs. And by the way, 2 years back, 9%, and today 14% happen to be women as such. So I think capital will run after competence. If there is some affirmative action required, it has to be in the food chain, which is early on, not at this stage. The early on is where seed capital comes in, angel capital comes in. With about 100 odd incubators and accelerators in the country, it's much easier for women to go there. It's much easier than yesterday, and I'm not saying it's easy, right, overall. So I think broadly, the infrastructure in the startup ecosystem is much more positive for women to enter at the early stage. I mean, today our average entrepreneur age is 27. This is the average entrepreneur age behind which we are putting 10 to 20 crore rupees in the beginning, right? They happen, because we are tech, so they happen to be tech. Many of them are not MBAs, some of them are MBAs, right? But they have gone through a cycle of work life, couple of years, 3, 4, 5 years. Many of them have got funded by angel investing, and they're running their stuff in incubators and accelerators. So to my mind, the field is wide open, and it is much more democratized today than what it was even, I would say, 3 years back, because your leveling playing field is information.
Saloni, would you agree with that? I mean, one of the things that marks out both Anjana and you really was the very early stage at which you all began. I think you were still in college when you set up your first venture. What typically were the challenges that you've had to overcome as against what Sudhir is now saying has changed so much in the ecosystem?
So I think the challenges really were age more than gender at that point. I mean, everyone would look at you when you went with your idea and they said, great PhD project, maybe you should, stay at it, but it probably won't become a company. And I look back and I see we're 700 people today. And it makes me really proud to go back and say, hey, it wasn't a PhD project. But I think thank you. One of the very interesting things which just occurred to me while we were sitting here was that in my first company, when you said about the supply chain, so we set up BPOs and KPOs in small towns and villages. And we would often get 100% resumes from women in the first year, often in our centers. And when we hit 3 years, we would start seeing men applying to the job because then they considered this to be a stable, good option to work in those areas. And men were allowed to travel and go out, whereas women had to stay back in those local geographies for whatever reason, family or otherwise. And so we, not by design, but just as it happened, we actually, out of our 700, 65% are a women workforce. In my second startup, which is a health and wellness startup, there is only one guy in the company, again not by design, there's only one guy in the company and he manages the reception. And it's again not by design, but it's just happened and I'm just thinking about this while we were having this conversation. And now I work for the government, I work with this organization called Invest India, which is 49% government and 51% industry. We actually have 54% women in our organization. So I feel that a lot of good work, like Sudhir was saying, you look at merit, you don't look at gender.
It's gender agnostic. So Anjana, how important is role modeling in that sense?
I think it's extremely important. I think that's where it's lacking. I don't think we have too many women role models to look up to. I think there's a dearth of them, right? And I think there are a lot of issues that women in general face that sometimes the guy in the room just doesn't understand. So it would really help if there were women role models to look up to that, or you can reach out to. But I think, again, it's really early in the game. You hardly have a handful. I mean, Kiran Mazumdar and 2 or 3 other people, there are hardly a handful of people in industry. I guess in the banking sector, there are a lot more. But I guess when you're 23, 24, when at that stage you have role models or mentors who've been there, who've been through the entire cycle of starting, exiting or listing or whatever the entire process is, they're able to share that journey with you, that would help. Because I see that today with the women, 60% of my leadership team are women today. And I see that today, right? So when they talk to me, I mean, I come from the retail industry, which is traditionally a male-dominated industry. Sure. So these women who've been working in the industry for 20, 25 years, their experiences are completely different. For me, I don't think, I was lucky enough not to have to deal with it because I started out and I've got a head start that I set the rules in that, in the space that I work in. But I think, I think even when I'm able to share whatever their experiences are, so a small example of something would be a woman who heads one of our most successful brands called Wrong. She had 13 years of work experience, and after that, when she took a break to take care of her children and go back to the industry, nobody gave her a job. So for 2 years, nobody gave her a job, and when she came to me, I was like, it's ridiculous, because nothing takes away the 13 years of experience you had, a break doesn't.
Absolutely.
And today, probably one of the most successful people in my office is Shruti, who's, I mean, a 2-year break didn't make a difference to anybody's life. So I think, if you have more and more women in those leadership roles, they're able to look past that break that I guess some men don't or aren't able to. So,
Priyanka, in your case, you're not just, I mean, it's not just about a workplace or you being a woman founder. Your market really is built on women itself. So how do you view this? I mean, what really are the challenges that you see in this? What are the benefits that you have, that you see in looking at building scale in a market that's focused on women?
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting, right? So 68, 65, 68% female, we are 183 people. My leadership team is 65% female, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, same. So I think female founders, female CEOs tend to build companies where women feel supported, where women feel encouraged, and they're given spaces to grow. That is an undoubted fact. I think change happens is when male founders and male CEOs are able to do the same thing. I think that is the golden ticket that we're all after. So coming to your question about targeting a female market, it is entirely by design. Do what you know, do it well, and you do it best, right? I understand women, my team understands women, and women were this hotly uncontested space as far as media companies, and I know it's Economic Times, and I'm very grateful that I'm here, but as far as media companies and content companies went, when we started, there was, and that was my pitch to IDG, there was not a single company that was looking at providing content online for women at scale, which is strange because of 40–50% of your digital population is female. They're looking for content that speaks to them, that's tailored for them. And the growth of PopXO over these past, we complete 5 years this March, the growth of PopXO over these 5 years has been predicated on the single laser focus that women is our market, and women is where we're going to build all the value that we're going to get. And that's really worked for us because you are not men and you are women, and every decision you do is tailored to that. Having that focus has been the single most important thing that's helped us grow.
And so Sudhir, since it's a nice opportunity to put you on the spot, so when will Chirathy get a woman partner as an investor?
In due course of time, I think so, and I'll say why also. I think the environment is such that we ourselves have experienced, and as I said, hindsight, but completely on merit, the fact that having women in the team is introducing extreme competition within the firm itself. That's a given. I think the other thing for funds like us, which is happening is that international and domestic investors, LPs I think their focus on gender diversity inside the firm is very high overall, which I think is good. So which is bringing the recognition up to a higher level. So at all layers within the firm, to my mind, the incoming of women will increase. There's no question. I think many of people like us are more sensitized towards the fact that we should sort of go a little bit here. You do require support, you do require safety. So we put together safety related issues when women go home because it's necessary. We've had a few incidents. We have to make sure that those things are taken care of. And I still remember one interview where we were hiring somebody and we said, look, we have facilities by which we make sure that women are safe when they go home. And she was living very far away. And to that extent, she said, I'm going to join now. Okay? So I think we'll have to take those steps which are very necessary and very fundamental to making sure that women can travel to the workplace, can go back home safely. The other thing which I think is very important, and this my colleague who is with us mentioned to me just 2 weeks back, and since I was coming here, I asked her that question. One other thing which she mentioned was, she says, the environment being equal inside the firm in merit based is very important for women to rise.
Okay.
Okay? This is a professional, she's 24 years old, and she mentioned to me that if the environment is positive in terms of one gender, then it is not good. If the environment is very merit based inside an organization, then they perceive it to be fair and then it's good. So I like that because fundamentally merit is merit. So gender and merit going together is actually not, two sides of the coin, it's one side of the coin.
Saroni, I thought we should get you to come in over here. I think one of the dominant themes that I think over the discussion here is that it's about merit, it's gender agnostic. Having said that, how important do you think it is to have more women investors actually who are evaluating ideas, who can do a lot of the hand holding and the role modeling that, that also is seen as important for more women to come into the fray and to stay there and to build businesses of scale?
I think it's extremely important because girls do need, like we discussed, they do need role models. They need far more encouragement, both at home as well as at the workplace, to sometimes do the same job. I also feel that women often, the stereotype that I see, women ask for more permission, men ask for more forgiveness. And that's what changes the game a lot. So,
just so that we can wrap this in the thing, I thought I could ask each of you in turn really, what would you tell a woman entrepreneur, Anjana, she were to ask you for advice? Is there something different that you would ask her to do as you would say
I
from
agree
another?
with what she said. I think we apologize a lot more. We ask, we don't tell. I don't think we're affirmative as much as we need to be. And yeah, I think just be yourself. And I don't think the bias should enter your head, especially if you're going to a VC to pitch. I think it's, as long as you believe and you've got the motivation to drive it through, I think that's what's important. And I guess stop being less apologetic. I think that's what we all invariably do, I guess. That needs to stop.
Then, Saloni, from your perspective, what really should a woman entrepreneur do to break through? The numbers we know are not good, as against the numbers in the panel here
Like
are
I
good.
said, stop asking for permission, start doing whatever you want to do, just keep doing it. At the end of the day, it's compounding, it's consistency that brings the results. So don't let go. And if things get tough, it's okay, they will get tough, but just keep going.
How many more women founders are you going to back?
Yeah. No, I think one, there was a good incident. So one of our team members came back to me, and I was giving her or asking her to take a much higher responsibility, which was beyond her age, because I really thought she was capable. And the first question she asked me was, "Do you think I'm really capable?" I've never seen that, let's say, of the guys' team, if I may say. And I advised her, I said, look, never ask that question. And I think it's the same thing.
Absolutely.
Right? Don't ask me that question. I do see that. And, you know, whether it's right or wrong is not the issue. I think it's important that initially that maybe from the family or from role models, this is very important. Self-belief is absolutely critical to success. And I think once that is, by the way, in the last 4 months, she has not used that word. Okay? Which I think is very important. And for that, the counseling doesn't have to necessarily come from women. It has to come from all team members around.
And if I can just add one little point to that, I think in addition to self-belief, it's also knowing that you can go back and negotiate.
Okay.
You know, we were discussing this last night at dinner, but I think I've seen this often that when I've given a task which is far, like in this case, right, far exceeds the person's ability of what they think, but I feel that they're ready, the men or the boys will always come back and negotiate saying, I'll do this if you give me this, this and this. But a girl will get scared and she'll say, but you know, I can't do it. And that is a big part of coaching for me with my leadership team, that it's okay for you to come back. If I'm giving you an impossible target, it's not because it is impossible. I think you can do it. I just want you to think through and come back and say, give me X number of people, give me so much time, you know, whatever it is, but come back and negotiate, and you have that ability. So don't get scared about it. So I just wanted to add that to this point.
Priyanka, I wanted to ask you again. So yes, you're a successful founder. You've gone out and built scale. You focused on a market that's predicated on women. How many top women managers do you have in the team really, and what does it take to really get a senior level of management?
Oh, wow, that's easy. Except tech and product, finance. Everyone's female. All my seniors are female.
Okay.
I'll give you kind of a real life example, right? So we are a female product. We are arguably one of the largest female focused products around. I was looking for someone to head my product team. I know it was a really big struggle. Good PMs are impossible to find. If anyone's just wondering what they should do in life, if they have any interest in this part of the world, please do it. It's extremely lucrative, right? And I was like, guys, there's no budget. Just get me someone smart. Then this lady came along. She was IIT Delhi, IIM Ahmedabad, and I was really excited to see the CV. I'm like, oh my God, she's in product, and she looks really good on paper. So I did the interview, and I really liked her, right? I get bored in an interview very quickly, and this was the one that carried on for a while. I was really enjoying engaging with her. And I'm like, listen, I know you're young. You haven't handled a full product yourself. You've handled many features in different products. I really want you to come on board and be the head of product for our company. And then she looks at me, and to Sudhir's point, and to my face, she says, I don't think I have the skills for this, Priyanka. And I looked at her and says, listen, don't ever say that, and B, we will train, coach, help, mentor. I will be there next to you to make sure that you're okay. And to my greatest disappointment, she said no. Okay. And we went after her for almost like 10 days. Literally, I sent different people to meet her. kind of talk her through. It didn't happen. And I was like so dejected at the point. A female product lead is like gold dust. And she could not get her head around the fact that she hasn't led a product to date, and PopExo is kind of for her large product, and she wouldn't be able to do it. So my message is that say yes first, figure out the rest later. Life is like that, and that always works, right? So that, and the second point to that is, it is going to be tough. It's going to be bloody difficult, and that is just the way this game is designed. Don't expect it to be easy. At every stage, like we are sitting here, you guys might feel like, oh my God, but I promise you, all of us have 27,000 things that are running at the back of our head of things that need to be done, things that worry us, right? It's difficult at every stage. It never gets easy. You have to enjoy that, and that has to drive you. And lastly, I mean, don't take no for an answer. Like, no is not a word that you recognize, right? If I took no from the many, many people who've said no over the course of these past 5 years, I wouldn't be here today. As long as you don't take no, you keep doing what you want to do, and you really believe in it, the world's your oyster. So yeah, it's possible. You just don't have to take no.
On that note, I think it's self-belief, really, that will make the difference between going places and probably not seeing your dreams come true. Thanks very much for being such an engaging panel. Thank you.